Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pro Wrestling World Talks and the shoot here on YouTube, Spotify, and of course, Apple Podcasts. I am your host, Daniel Burke, joined by this evening by my co-host, Mac, on a very somber episode. We've had a rough week here with Pro Wrestling World Talks and, of course, also Pro Wrestling World as a whole, as unfortunately on Monday, we lost Jon Young at the age of 33 years old. Jon was afflicted at birth with muscular dystrophy and developed upper respiratory failure to go along with it, with a slew of other health issues. It's been well documented on this program, including an episode that me and Jon did at the end of June, which was kind of Jon's return because he took a few months, about a month and a half off to kind of, because a lot of things have come to light recently, or things that you've kind of, the pieces have been put together of the puzzle. Unfortunately, he was and admitted that he was going through kind of hospice therapy treatment. And if anybody who deals with someone that, or almost at the close of end of life stage, that's usually hospice is kind of, they're there to kind of make you comfortable. And in the process of a terminal illness, and that's what he was dealing with, a terminal illness. When he took the time off last year, when he was in rehab in fall of 2023, the beginning of 2024, the doctors gave him 1 to 2 years to live, but then said, but maybe 10 years. And he would always joke about the maybe 10 years, because he'd be like, it's like, well, it's a hell of a window. Yeah, it's like they're guaranteeing me 1 to 2 years, but at the same time, it's like, maybe 10. Unfortunately, he did not get even a year. And that's so he, understanding what he was going through, just in general with the disease, is really kind of hard to think about and hard to fathom. You're below the age of 35 and they're pretty much saying, hey, this is what possibly could happen. And it's really unfortunate that, again, that this has, 33 years old is just, it's way too young to be having to talk about somebody in the past tense. And this is not the first time that we've had to do this on this program. In the last few months, I just lost my brother in May, and now I lost a brother in the more extended family sense. Jon brought me onto this program. It was one of the deciding factors in bringing me onto this program 2 years ago. It was kind of an arranged marriage, so to speak, as far as the show. They didn't know if we were going to have good chemistry, whatnot. I personally feel like I can work with anybody. I have my moments where there's could be difficult people that I can't work with, but at least with Jon, I felt like comfortable enough where it was just like, okay, because we have a lot of common interests other than professional wrestling. Because as pro wrestling is concerned, a lot of times me and him would be on the opposite sides of the fence. But I never got mad with him. I never argued with him. We would have kind of lively discussions that would never lead into an argument or a bad feelings, at least about our opinions. because we both respected each other's opinions. And I've always tried to respect others' opinions, at least people that I respect their opinions. And he is someone that I've always respected his opinion, because even though we could be on opposite sides of the fence, at least at the end of the day, I could still look at him and say that he knows what he's talking about and he's educated. When it comes to professional wrestling, and as far as host is concerned, he's one of the best people I've ever worked with. And it's a real shame that things ended. I never met Jon. I never went to Chicago. I meant to. It was on my plan. I was thinking about going this past spring before the Royal Rumble trip was sprung on me. And, you can only make a choice. And I thought, personally, I'm like, I'll make it next year. However, I didn't get that next year. And that bothers me, because I did plan on going to see him. I did plan on going to visit. I did plan on hanging out with him. Just because of the kinship that me and him, and brotherhood that we had. And it wasn't just wrestling. It was music. It was movies. It was television. It was a lot of things, pulp culture related, that both of us were able to have that kinship and that friendship for. We like the same type of music. We like the same type of bands. We would talk about our love for Metallica and how much we hated Lars Ulrich. Seems to be a common interest with Metallica fans. And he might have got a kick out of this comment, because I saw it the other day, because it was a clip from Some Kind of Monster, which me and him would talk about all the time, about like how that almost kind of, that was one of those films that was hard for us to watch at times, because it was like the veil had been taken away. The cloth had been, we saw Oz, behind the wizard behind the cloth, if you saw Wizard of Oz. And you saw this band almost become bare. And it was the clip of James and Lars fighting, and James gets pissed off, leaves the room, and slams the door on his way out. And it's, of course, because Lars had said something. And someone had made a comment on the video and said, could you imagine just having to listen to Lars Ulrich talk all the time? Yeet! And it was definitely something, I think, Jon, I almost sent them the clip with the comment. Of course, though, because I'm still in that mode of, I'll just send him this, the last time I talked to him was Friday. He had said to me that, it's your spot now. Because last Tuesday, not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday before, Jon had made a decision that he was going to resign from the podcast. And I didn't, and I felt like, again, because it was just, I didn't know it was going to be 6 days later, but I felt uneasy that this could be the beginning of the end. And he just couldn't do it anymore. There was that thought of it. Because I had talked to him the previous Friday, and the previous Friday he ended up getting a catheter put in. So he really was in a lot of pain. And I heard from his mother on Facebook talking about how he was really suffering and really going through it. And this was last Tuesday. And then Tuesday he made the decision he was going to resign. And then we talked, but we stayed in touch, and we talked quite a bit, and it seemed like he was at least alert and, somewhat kind of with it. And then he got quiet again over the weekend. And then Monday, I got confirmation because Monday morning, I guess he had passed. And then Monday night, we had gotten confirmation here at Pro Wrestling World. And all of us have been uh, heartbroken about it. Jon was a truly amazing human being, a loving person, and also somebody that did not take the issues when you're in a position like that. I had a conversation this morning with my parents about bitterness because Jon and I had our own sort of difficulties, not to the extent that Jon had, but with me, we both had things that people kind of labeled us with being disabled or, handicapped. And we both had that kind of bond there, that unkind of spoken bond of guys that kind of people would either second guess or not take seriously. And both of us kind of burst through those challenges. I mean, and I hate to kind of equate I hate when I have to, I don't want to be one of those people that puts myself into somebody else's story. And I'm not trying to do that by any means. I'm only saying that I can at least relate to Jon in the sense of that we both had challenges and we both could have been bitter about it. Jon was not bitter about what he had to deal with. He handled everything in grace. He handled everything with, in my opinion, he was a beacon of strength. The fact that I think up until Monday at his job full time, worked from home as a call center nonetheless, but still did it. Still put in his 8 hours every day, considering the fact of what he was dealing with on a consistent basis. And you can go back to the last episode that me and him did, and it's probably the most raw emotion episode I have done of anything ever. Because we talked about some really heavy stuff, mostly the fact of that I'm still trying to get over the loss of my brother. Because that wound is still fresh. And I don't know if Jon knew what was going to happen within the next few months. He might have. But when I was going through my challenges and going through my bouts of just sheer depression and loss and a hole, Jon always reached out and tried to make me feel like that he cared, because I know he did. I hate having to do this. I hate it. I hate having to come onto this program and also explain to people too that Jon dying at 33 was because of health conditions, because now the way society is, and it's unfortunate that it has come to this, and with certain crises going on, when people see that they passed away at 33, they automatically assume, it's nefarious reasons. And I feel like I need to set the record straight for him and tell everybody and say, he was born with it. And it was nothing he did. It just, he came out into this world and automatically had a challenge that a lot of people because I have another friend from college too that had the same has the same disease, and it's you're they tell you outright, they're just like, your shelf life, it's like, so you're automatically coming out of the gun, and it's just hard. Like, and you're already dealing with having to have discussions and dealing with making it to 40, making it to 45 or 50 might be a blessing, and that's horrible. I see why Jerry Lewis had to have those telethons all the years, because you want to try to get rid of this disease, and you want to try to be it, because right out of the gate, you're at just an unbelievable disadvantage. And for someone to just handle it and just say, well, what can you do? I've done it. Of course, my problem is not something that is eventually going to, where he tried to squeeze every single bit of life he could out in 33 years. And I'm damn sure that he did. And the one drawback, one of the things that he's going to laugh about, I know he is that, and I'm sure that a part of his too was he's just like, can you at least leave AEW alone now? You're not crap on it too much for my sake.
Cornbread, damn it, cornbread.
And it's because he loved that damn company, and he that's another reason why both of us, like, people can sit there and be like, wow, there's such differing opinions, because it's true. Like, he loves the company. He's always kind of been, I wouldn't say biased, he's realistic, but I would put him in a category of someone that he's definitely has been optimistic and probably sees more the positives than he does see. Because I look at the AEW and I just look at the negatives. He looks at AEW and looks at the positives, which for him, he was able to do that and forget about everything else and just think about the positives, which I wish I can do that as a person. I wish I can look at certain things the way he did, as like, and I wouldn't say it was childlike, but I would just say not thinking the absolute worst of something and going into it with positive feedback. Of course, I would tell him all the time about doing that with WWE too, but that seemed to never work. So that's why it worked, because I was always look at the WWE positively. And I'm not saying I'm a WWE mark either, but he would be pessimistic about WWE, and I would be optimistic, where he would be optimistic about AEW and I would be, the opposite. And that's what made us work. I put on a Larry Bird jersey, one of my favorites, because we were also big, massive jersey collectors. One of his proudest moments, and one that he always tries to see, because he's a massive Chicago sports fan, just like I'm a massive New England sports fan. He congratulated me when the Celtics won the title, because he was just like, if anybody, I'm happy for you, because right now you deserve it to kind of take your mind off with everything that's been going on, which was really, again, humble and nice. Corso, every time that we would go on a chat sometimes, and we would be just chatting randomly, he would always put up the David Tyree picture of catching the ball against Rodney Harrison in Super Bowl 42. And he would always try to show me the clip from Game 6 of the 2013 NHL Stanley Cup Finals between the Blackhawks and the Boston Bruins, when the Blackhawks scored like 2 goals in a period of like 13 seconds to win the Stanley Cup in Boston.
I mean, what the fuck is that?
yeah. And I always remind him, I don't care about the Bruins, so you can't hurt me there. But
shut up, bitches.
he would definitely appreciate these. I think without 100%, he would definitely appreciate these little clips. Yeah. Help me out here, Mac.
It's
trying to get.
Yeah.
It's I've
tough.
done this. It's tough because again, I've had to do this the last few months. This is the second time I've had to do it in like 2 months, and I'm not at a loss for words, but it's just one of those deals of where I'm like, it's hard.
It is.
It's so hard.
It is. It's one of those situations where I'll be the first to admit, those that know me on either show, I did not know Jon nearly as well. I've interacted with him quite a few times, however, regardless, and I never had a bad interaction with Jon. In any of the shows that I was on, because there have been more than one or two. And I remember having a side chat with him and you at one point, like, about Seth Rollins' team and stuff like that. And that was fun. That was definitely fun. And anytime he was on any show with me or vice versa, I always had a good time with Jon. I thought he was incredibly well-spoken as well. The amount of professionalism that Jon had in some cases versus me was like night and day. I like to joke around, so it makes it a little bit harder for me, but it's a situation where, again, he was a consummate professional in everything that he did, and he was a great friend, he was a great son, he was a great podcaster. He was. And again, like, every interaction that I had with Jon was nothing short of great, nothing short of amazing, which is kind of sounding weird considering conversational, but again, it's just the truth. And I know that his presence is missed by a lot of people.
Yeah, if you're friends with Jon and you go on his Facebook page, there are a lot of people affected by this. Yeah. There are a lot of people right now.
Let me apologize actually now. If I took all of those things, I'm already having encoding issues according to my recorder. I could only imagine the amount of encoding issues I would actually have if I tried to somehow incorporate all of them.
Yes. It's the amount of love and support that has been and testimonials I have seen the last couple of days, and there's no better man, in my opinion, that deserves it. All the love and support that, especially his mother, I talked to her in the last couple of days. It's and having that conversation too on the same week is because I've already, again, it opening up old wounds and kind of more or less replaying deja vu of what you went through a few months back. That's at one point, I couldn't do it like the first day or two. I had to wait a few more days because my own kind of sanity, because this is an equivalent to me of losing someone that is a very close friend or almost like as close as family. And I've known the guy for a little less than 2 years, but we worked so well together. We had so many fine conversations. Stephanie is also, she mentioned it to me tonight. She's just like, because they were born on the same day. They were both born on March 20th. So they were birthday twins.
I'm actually gonna
birthday buddies.
I'm gonna post what she posted earlier, which is just a brief Facebook conversation that they had about Senor Stink.
Yes.
And then I'll put Beetlejuice.
John is the godfather of Beetlejuice. And the reason being is because when we started doing the Dark Side of the Ring series last fall, Steph was talking about then we were in the market to getting a cat. This was about a month or two before we ended up finally getting Beetlejuice. And I think John at this point was already in the rehab facility getting, and again, for medical reasons. Because if people join, rehab, no, I'm for medical reasons. I need to keep. I hate that.
There's medical rehab and there's drug rehab. He was in there for medical rehab.
And he was in there for medical reasons, and I need to keep repeating that because, again, when you're talking about someone with this age, that's automatically sometimes where people go. And there were people online. We actually had to put up a disclaimer on our post talking about it, saying that it was for medical reasons, and that was when we got Beetlejuice, and it was all about, he saw a promo with Andrade with Sting, and he said, and you're both Senor Sting. So it sounded like Senor Stink. So that's how the nickname for Beetlejuice became Senor Stink. I wish I could get him on camera better. At least on video.
That's never going to happen.
Never going to happen. He is a very he's
skittish
little guy. He's skittish. Yeah. He just doesn't like to be held. He doesn't like to be anything. He's just
doesn't like other people.
No, he doesn't.
I still think he hates me. I don't think he hates me. I think he's just terrified of me.
He's just terrified of you. That's it. Like, he's just terrified of you. It has nothing to do with, but he's terrified of everybody. Except now Daria. He seems to be attacking Daria all the time, which is hilarious.
She's an old curmudgeon at this point anyway, so
yes.
She probably deserves it.
She's become Walter Matthau in this sense.
Oh my god.
Like, it's just that's what she's become. She's become Matthau. And just this old, like, get out of my way, kid. Because it's kind of like Nelson and Martin. You know, Beetlejuice is dancing around while Nelson is trying to take a swig at him. And it's just, who's the, God. But one of my favorite things about John, because you brought up the Seth Rollins thing, because that was on
the other show.
Our old show.
Yep.
The other show. And he was steaming about it. He was pissed off because John, we were all discussing, talking about Seth Rollins, and we all said that Seth Rollins is the most over he has ever been. He's finally figured it out and all this stuff.
Yep.
And the argument was made by the host saying, well, I feel he was most over in 2014, 2015.
When he was champion, basically.
When he was champion at first. And we were all like, no, he's over now, because back then he was an in-ring. But he kept hammering home this point. And John just chimed in and says, apparently you don't know do you actually know what the term over is? Holy shit. Like,
the funniest thing is that we do that show, or did that show as a panel. So
Yes.
it's only really him and John talking at that point. I think you and I had chimed in at random points as well, but typically it was like in order. And I just remember being muted and laughing my ass off.
I never, because I knew how flustered he was. And then he was in the side chat and he's just like, I want to take his fucking head off right now. Like that. He was so mad. So fucking mad about this. And I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? Like, because that was the thing.
John or the other host?
Well, mostly him.
Okay.
I was not mad at John at all.
No,
John, I
I'm
felt
not
like
saying you were.
know,
I'm saying whose reaction was that?
No, I was mad at him for just being like, number one, he never liked to be challenged on air.
No.
That, and you know it, if you ever hear it, it's the truth. Okay?
Well, the thing is,
that's all I'll say.
With that show, I will just add this last part before I bury it, which I might be doing anyways. He never saw it as a group show. It was his show plus a panel. It was never our show. It was always his show. Which, listen, at the end of the day, okay, you're the owner of the channel or whatever, but at the same token, it's like, at that time, you needed it. And now, as we've said previously, this person has found his niche, and great for him. I don't know how much he's going to be able to carry it on, all things considered, given what the niche is or was, but we'll see. Anyway.
Well, it depends what spear he goes under now because of the fact that we're the current political climate, but whatever.
Oh, I didn't really think of that. Yeah, you got a point.
He can change that angle real quick. But John was able to rattle his cage, and that automatically put him over with me for life, where I was just like, okay, like, you're somebody I'm willing to die on the hill for because of stuff like this. And it was so true what he said. He was just like, apparently you don't know what over is. So it's like, because that is an argument though that, was the person wrong? No. But at the same time, they weren't right either. That's the argument.
I think it's subjective.
Yes.
I think saying it in the context of especially how we're saying it now, but obviously at that time, I think it's subjective. I do. Like, he didn't need to be champion at this point in time. At that point in time that he was referring to, 2014, 2015, 2016 even.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, he has the belts, and he's doing what he does with those, and he's over. But now, he didn't need the belts to get over.
Right.
And the other point was that this person, the host of that other show, is saying, oh, well, it's his song. That's why he's over. Blah, 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 blah. Is it just because of the song, guys?
No.
Like, no. It's not, dickhead. Just shut up.
It's not, dickhead. Exactly. It's not. Like, it's not. But, you know, then somebody can make the same argument. What about Jey Uso? That's fair. But with Rollins, it's this whole personality. If they sing the song to you, once your song is stopped, once your song is over, and they start singing along to the beat of the, like, whoa, hey, you're over. Like, it's not the song, you're over. And that's something that is just a simple and unadulterated fact.
It is.
I don't remember Seth Rollins in 2014, 2015 people saying that, because most of the time it was just like, will he please shut up, because it was his promos were all he does that now, but it's better.
But like, it's better because it's part of his character now.
It's part of his character.
At that point, it really wasn't.
He had the black and the blonde highlights. Oh God.
Yeah.
And we said we were going to talk much wrestling tonight, but yeah, it's more stories.
It's natural progression.
Yeah,
man.
it's just natural progression. Plus, with John, anyways, me putting him over and saying that, you know, I really loved when he did that, because that shows you just how good he was, and also how much of a dignified guy he was, because doing this show, when I started working with him, I'm just like, shit, he is massively professional.
Yeah.
I try to come off as professional, but he is massively professional.
It's the same with me, and that's what I was saying before. I try, and there are times I am incredibly successful at it, and there are other times that I'm just like, I need to throw some jokes in. This is too serious for me right now. Let's go. And
Smoke.
anyways, the other thing I wanted to say though is I remember when he came on the shoot, and we did kind of like a shoot Pro Wrestling World Talks collab for WrestleMania, and that was a lot of fun. That episode was a lot of fun. I remember going to town on the graphics. I remember having him come in, and we talked a lot about it. And I just, like, you talked about the bias earlier, which I kind of started laughing at. I muted because I remember the bias was on full display for that episode too. Oh God! He's like, I don't really care. It's not AEW. He didn't say that outright, but you can tell the vibe. He didn't
say it outright, and then
you can tell the vibe was there though.
I told him that afterwards. I'm just like, can you just show like you like it a little bit? I said, look, even with AEW, I talk shit about Tony's booking. I don't talk shit about the talent. I love most of the talent. I just hate the booking.
Yep.
And that was one thing I always try to do. I always tried to push the narrative of, I don't like the booking, but I like the talent. Where with him, it was just like,
I hate it all. I hate it all.
He just couldn't find anything that he enjoyed about it. I'm just like, you know.
I think by the time we got to Cody and Roman, it was just like, I don't care. It's like, all right.
I can imagine if CM Punk was on the card, he'd be like, oh, God. Like if Punk wasn't hurt, he'd be like,
because, well, I mean, granted, too, that was before we knew some of the stuff that we know now about the backstage altercation and All In and everything.
Oof. Yeah, he was, I remember him trying that night, the night that they showed the footage, because that was like the same week, the week right after Mania. I remember him trying to push it to me of how AEW was justified showing the video, and I'm just like, John, please stop. I'm like, I love you. Please stop.
Even if
I'm not, and
even if they're
folks,
justified,
I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying, like,
no, we're not.
It was just funny to me.
Even if it's justified, though, we have to realize that okay, it's justified, but at the same token, like, you're giving a WWE talent AEW airtime.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that in the first place? So even if they're justified, they kind of have to realize maybe this isn't the best thing for business.
He did kind of agree with me too that Jungle Boy wasn't over. Like, he didn't feel like Jungle Boy was over enough.
Jungle Jim bitch Jim Perry.
Yeah, exactly.
And yes, I know I called him Jim Perry. That was on purpose.
But no, he definitely, I think, he tried to look at it somewhat positively. Like, he was starting to, like, understand a little bit with AEW about, like, and we would talk about WWE, and I would always tell him, I would say, look, is WWE perfect? No, but it's the best we're going to get, and the best we've seen in 20 some odd years.
Well, that's the thing, you know? and that was the biggest thing of why I, especially at WrestleMania time, I was like, man, wow. Because at that time, it was cooking for a good 6 months plus, if not a year, if you want to say it that way, since the previous Mania. And they've been cooking since.
Yep.
You know, and especially after 40, they've been cooking. You know, they might have had some missteps here and there with TV. They had one bad PLE, which we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Right.
One. Out of 2024 calendar year, they've had one bad PLE. I don't think AEW can really say the same.
No, I have to give it, because AEW, their pay-per-views, their match quality has always been solid. I can't argue.
I'll give you that.
Some of their decision making, yeah.
Yeah.
But their matches have been fantastic. Like me sitting here and saying, and I'm doing this out of respect for John too, because I don't want to sit here and be like, but it's the truth. I don't want to lie. Again, I'm not someone that likes to sit here that puts out a false narrative or someone that's, oh, you're an AEW hater. I'm really not. I'm trying to give you the positives and the negatives, and I've always tried to be like that. And John understood that too, because, you know, I told him straight up. I said, Ospreay and Danielson was fantastic. I said, I can't argue that it wasn't a fantastic matchup. But the problem that I have is, John, is what was the story? Like, what was it? Like,
that's part of why I'm saying I
you know?
don't like it. You know, like, yeah, the matches are good, but where's the story behind it?
Yeah.
You know, you have maybe like one or two stories going at any given time. I feel like it's just like, okay, sure, why not?
It's funny too because this whole thing was like fuck CM Punk, but I remember he's like, don't tell anybody this. Well, I don't tell anybody this, but because one time I'm just like, come on. If Phil called you right now and wanted you to go to meet him at Mindy's Bakery for a muffin, you're not going to take him up on it. He's like, don't tell anybody that I said this, but yes, I would. It's like, well, your secret's out now, buddy. Like,
I
that's
mean,
my last little
but that's the
rib.
thing. Like, listen, like I think we all have wrestlers, sports entertainers, superstars, whatever you guys want to call them, that we all probably don't like, right? For any given reason, you know, and that could be you don't like them because of their performances, it could be you don't like the character that they play. It could be any number of things. But if you sit there and tell me that, like I'll just give you one example, not that I don't like her or anything, but Maxine Dupree gets a lot of crap online. Right. If she called me up tomorrow and was like, hey, I want to bring you and Dan out for coffee. Dude, you and I are going for fucking coffee.
Of course we are.
Like, let's go.
Of course we are.
Who ran?
That's for you, because I know where that's going.
Well, actually, what happened, I had something funny happen tonight, because we talk about the one thing John wanted to do was he wanted to interview a big time like performer before he passed. That was a goal that he had. And they were able to, and David was able to secure, because David is a friend of Ahmed Johnson. And they wanted to keep it small. They wanted to keep it with two hosts. And I had already been at this point. I was already the co-host. But out of respect for David, I said, you should get the second slot because you have the personal relationship with him. And then, of course, John was, at that point, was the host. So automatically I was just like, well, he's the host. It's got to go to him. That wasn't even, like, I wasn't mad about it. It wasn't like, I didn't mind stepping aside because it was, Dave had the personal relationship. Deserved it because John was in the number one spot. And I wouldn't like to say that I was the number two guy. I would say it was more like a 1A and 1B. But I wasn't going to fight with him and keep him from interviewing Ahmed Johnson. So today, Dave posted a message in one of our the side chats, and said that, and it was from Ahmed Johnson, sending his condolences to Dave for John's passing, which led me to making a comment that I never thought I would make. And that would be that I am an Ahmed Johnson guy. The fact that he took the time out of his day to send condolences to Dave and us as a whole for John speaks massive volumes about the human being that person is. And I may have not been I may have not have been his biggest fan growing up, but at the same time, I at least can sit here and appreciate the fact that he took the time out of the day to send his condolences. And the fact that at one time he was the Intercontinental Champion, was being posed to be in the main event spot for that company. Injuries kind of derailed his career, which led to why he never kind of reached the heights that I think everybody thought he would. But at one point, he was a big star, was a main eventer for that company. And John was able to interview him, which was able to fulfill that dream. And then today, when I heard that Ahmed had reached out to us, or to David for that matter, I was really impressed. And I have to put it out there with that if Ahmed hears this, number one, thank you very much for that. And number two, you're always welcome on our show. You're always welcome for, because now I feel like we need to have that. We might as well. I said, we'll have Dave on, if you wanted to be with the three of us, if you wanted to be with the two of us, whatever. We'll work it out. And because why not? I have a few questions from your career, maybe a little rant, because when you're Pearl River plunged the Undertaker at the end of King of the Ring 97, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Oh, you were taking the Undertaker. You can't do that. So mad about that because I was dumb, 13, 14 years old every time. Because you're thinking to yourself, it's like the Undertaker's the best of this company. He should win every single match. And then realistically, it's like, no, it's not how it works, Dad. But at 13, 14, you didn't know any better because you're stupid. When it comes to wrestling, because it's before the internet at this point, I really didn't start I didn't get internet until probably like late summer, fall of 97. So I didn't know like the dirt sheets and that type of stuff. Like, because I thought wrestling magazines, it was just like, oh yeah, like Pro Wrestling Illustrated, they tell the closest thing to reality, which they did. But yeah.
I think they were really dirt sheets in 97 anyways.
Well, there was The Observer. The Observer started in the early 80s.
Hey. Shut up, bitches.
John and I he hated the people that I loved and respected. Like, as far as podcasts is concerned, big guy, I love Cornette. He hated, he would always.
Why?
Because
Cornette's funny as fuck, man.
Because all he did was shit on AEW.
Dude, fine, but still. He's come around on Kenny, though.
He has. And, it was the same thing with Eric Bischoff, another guy that I absolutely adored and loved. But he was just like, all he does is, it's like, he wasn't one of those toxic people online that, of course, the way that they somehow white knight this company, he wasn't that sense. But at the same time, he really loved the company. He wanted them to succeed. And I feel like I almost have to root for them because of him and his honor, because that's what he would want. I'm quite glad also that I was able to influence him to maybe cut back on alcohol and start smoking weed. That probably helped his smoke. That probably helped his overall health, which I think it did, because again, it's hard when you're dealing with the issues that he was dealing with. I wouldn't say, I'm not saying that, but we would have those conversations. we would have those conversations of just like where, and I think when he got out of rehab, again, for medical reasons, because I don't think he had a problem. I don't think he did. I just think that when you get, and I've been there, I was there in my 20s when every time, and the person that is the co-host of this program can attest to this, every fucking time I had something that went bad in my life, the first goddamn thing I would do is call him or text him and say, we're going out fucking drinking. That was the first thing we did for a couple of years there until finally I just said, I have to stop. The breaking point for me was going to a movie store and getting and throwing up in front of the building. Not only to the point of, okay, I threw up, but I was at the counter getting stuff and I had to be like, excuse me. And I had to go outside and throw up more.
I love that story just for that reason. Just you put your stuff on the table. I'll be right back. Excuse me. You go outside. You yak. You come back in. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me again. You go out and yak again. No. It was, and I just. Oh God, we're going to see Iron Man 2, and I forgot what I forgot how bad. I forgot what we were drinking the night before. I don't remember if that was the card game night or if that was. I feel like it was, but I think it was Asshole. I think it was Asshole we were playing.
That's true. There were so many times with you that the next day. There were so many times the next day where I felt like absolute trash that I forgot half the time, or I would mix things up where I,
The worst was that Mania. And your dad the next day.
Oh, God.
Well, you have some hair of the dog holding up the fucking bottle of Jaeger that we were smashing all night.
Oh, God, I wanted to kill him. Oh, God. And then he's just like, hey, you want some food? I'm like, oh, no. And I'm running to the bathroom. I'm tired. He had such a good laugh at that.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
He had such a good laugh at that. He thought it was hysterical. And I'm just, because, God. But he was just happy to get woken up. But I remember that next day, he was just like, oh my God. Like it was the walking
It was funny because I got up early and I walked out into that room that had the TV.
Yeah.
And I just remember just like hanging out and fucking Molly, your dumbass dog Molly just fucking yaks right next to my foot. And I fell asleep again for a little bit on that couch. And then you come in and just fucking step all up in it. And that was just like the cake of the icing on the cake, excuse me. Fucking just pukes right next to me. I pass out for a little bit, and you walk in, wake me up, and you step right the fuck in it.
I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
My God. But sobriety?
Because I'm not booked.
God. Yes. Like, just, it took me a while to finally realize how unhealthy that was. And
listen,
also
the thing for me is I still, like, I had this conversation with a coworker, like, months ago. Probably last year, actually. I was like, I just like the taste of beer. And they're like, yeah, me too. Which I'm just like, I like beer. I don't know what to say.
No, but we don't. It's not like it was before. Like, before it was.
Because I'm not booked.
Not booked for sobriety. I'm not booked for sobriety.
At least for me,
I'm not doing it, like, as much as I was, though. That's the thing. But if you get one in me, sobriety.
Because I'm not booked.
Yeah.
And I think that was the way it was with John, because it was just, but again, knowing what he had to go through, like, other than rehab, he was pretty much confined to his house.
Yeah.
The last couple of years. And when you're confined like that, because trust me, folks, We've all been there in the last 5 years. We
Yeah.
were confined to close quarters.
Yeah, we can all attest to that at this point.
For us, it was a couple of months. For him, it was a couple of years.
I wouldn't even say that. I think it's hard to say that because there are companies that they went home expecting to be back weeks later, and they're still on fucking remote work. You know, like my roles, the 2 roles that I've had since COVID, none of them have gone back to the office. And if they do go back to the office, it's like quarterly meetings, maybe. It's maybe hybrid work. It just depends on the role. And you're right, though, in the sense of, like, John, having to deal with that day in, day out, pre, during, and post-COVID is tough.
Yeah.
It's just tough. And I can only imagine what he's going through, not only with like his overall health and his body, obviously, but just the mental aspect of it too. I could only imagine.
There were times where we would. I told them all the time. I said, I don't care. Any hour, fucking call me. Just hit me up. I don't care. Like, because it just he lived in a bubble, you know. It was just him and his mom, and that's a lot. That's a lot with what she had to deal with as well, with, you know, being a full-time caretaker and worry about the future, and the amount of emotion she's dealing with right now has got to be extremely heavy. Like, in more ways than one, because it's just, you know, I can only imagine losing a son, and also the amount of, I don't know if it's, you come to grips with it. I don't know as a parent, period. But I can only imagine the thought process that sometimes you go through when they get afflicted with something. If you're like, what is it? This was something I did. Like, you start thinking that you're the reason, or something that you did, or directly. It's just, shit happens. She put it this week. One of her posts this week, she talked about, you know, with lemons, and it's just setbacks, and it was really hard to read and listen to, because it's like knowing and hearing about and kind of figuring out and seeing where things were lining up with how John was communicating, and also talking, or lack of communication at times. And you're hearing about things that are happening with his hospice care, and the fact that he had to have a catheter put in. That's when it was just like the reality of things really started to come into focus. I did not expect it to be as close as it was. I was thinking he was going to have at least another year, you know, or another 2 years or something, because he was strong. He was strong in the sense of, I felt like that he felt like that he was going to be able to get through it and push through, and he wanted to. He really wanted the podcast to succeed. He really wanted this to be something, and I wanted to be something as well. I've always wanted to be something, and that's a lot of his health issues and a lot of stuff that he was dealing with at certain points. You know, the program kind of needed to take a back seat for him at certain points, and it's just because he physically couldn't do it, or it was just his mind was, he had so much heaviness he had to put on, that the last thing he wanted to do. And I understood that. Like, and I grasped it. And he I wish we got together to do more stuff after he initially had come back, because he had come back, said that he would be ready, and told me in mid-May that he was ready to come back. But by that point, was right around the time that my brother David had passed, or was like a week before, and I didn't register it enough and go and kind of it just didn't absorb. And I took that week off that David died, and then came back a week later. But I was just doing this show for a while, the shoot meeting, where we were still posting on PWW Talks, because I really didn't have the mindset to edit. And sometimes with Jon and we would talk for hours, and we would talk about stuff that we really didn't want to have on the show. So for either personal reasons or just because I really don't want to get fired. So there would be a lot of times we would have to just kind of edit things down. And I just really wasn't in the mindset to editing. And I know because we were just doing this show, and I was just posting on PWW Talks to keep the lights on, to kind of make sure that we had something out. And he kind of thought that I was neglecting him, which wasn't the case. It was the fact that it's just, I couldn't really, my head wasn't in the game to do two podcasts at that point. And I had my obligations with PWW Talks. And with this show, I really don't have to edit. It just runs through. All I have to do with this is enhance the audio to make it sound great, to make it sound crisp. And I do the same thing with PWW Talks, where we were doing separate shows. And I would always try to enhance the audio, but I don't have to edit this. I really don't, because it just runs through. And if we might have to, if one of us has to take a bathroom break and whatnot, but you'll never tell what spots.
I mean, hey, I'm going to take a little bit credit here. Just saying. I do pause and stop and stuff like that. I don't really do many splicing.
No.
And typically when we do, I send Dan the timestamps of what has to be spliced. But I try to pause as much as I can, so that way we just pick right up. And it makes it so much easier. So much easier.
And that's why for a while we were just doing this. And it wasn't because I was trying to block Jon out. It was because of the fact that emotionally, mentally, I couldn't handle editing. It just, I didn't have the time or capacity for it. And to be quite honest, there was a little bit for a couple of weeks after that where in those shows that I really wasn't there completely because of what I was dealing with. And I probably wasn't watching the product or wrestling in general, the new stuff, to kind of, because at that point I was there was a couple of weeks there I do not remember. Mostly because of the fact that I was self-medicating on marijuana to the extent of where I felt like to the extent where I was in cloud 50, not cloud 9. Everybody was probably thinking they could have went on my roof and just done smoke signals. They could have just done telecommunication that way. Just like with, and I want to thank Sunnyside, by the way, for Sunnyside in Leicester, Massachusetts, for their help during that time, and how they've helped with this process as well. Because I was just starting to get in the groove of things with everything, and I was really excited for a lot of things that were starting to ramp up. And then Monday was a complete fucking gut punch. Because I wanted to be able to share success and be able to see him be able to see where things would go. And also be able to bring him on, not every time, but when his health allowed it, to be back, to come on for an episode or two, to see how he was doing, to be able to give the lesson, because everybody wanted to know how he was doing. And I tried to keep it private with people, because even though he was honest and open, like one of the last programs that we did before we did the round table, but before that it was his return from his sabbatical between April and June. But we went real deep because we pretty much he talked about everything and just was open and honest and saying that, when doctors gave me last year when I was in rehab 1 to 2 years to live, and then said maybe 10. And I always joked with him. I always joke with him. I'm like, that's a hell of a gap. It's like, well, 1 to 2 years, but maybe 10 years. Like, how can you plan that way? Under the fact that at 33 years old, you're having to go under hospice care because well enough that once you hit that age, when you hit that stage, that where you're going, where things are going to end. And the mind fuck that someone has to go through, and I have to think about his mother, and can't say enough condolences, and also enough, because again, I messaged her the other night and I just said how much of a tremendous human being that your son is, because I wanted her to know. I want everybody to know that watch this program, or listens to this program over the years and have seen our shows and have worked with and have seen us and listened to us, and if they understood how good of a human being he was, how well read he was, how professional he was, how deep of a person he was too, and was able to make things like sometimes with wrestling with him, I would just tell him, I'd be like, sometimes all it is just good guy versus bad guy. And he would just go and be able to explain it in a way that was so cultured. It was like I was almost reading like something from the New Yorker, for Christ's sake. Guys like Longfellow and Hemingway, things like that, of just being able to put wrestling in general in such a unbelievable and kind of artistic way, where to me it's a tremendous art form, and I love it. And I feel like Jon saw it the same way, but we both saw it as art, but we both saw it completely different as far as art is concerned. Where I'm always thinking about he doesn't mind being a starving artist, where you're making really nice quality stuff, but you want to be able to, like, you don't mind if you're popular or not. You don't care. Like, if you can go to like one of these little side places, or at least one of the little coffee shops, and talk about art with some people that would automatically kind of be in your crowd, like they're loyal, and they support you. They're always contributing, and it's the same crowd, but it's not mainstream enough. Where the way I am with art is, I wanted to go to some Christie auction house and get the absolute highest bid it possibly can. And the way that I look at professional wrestling is that I want to be able to tell a story that will get all the eyes on the product as humanly possible. And the only way to do that is with one company, I feel like. And I'm not saying that they are the best wrestling company. I would say that they are the best company that presents professional wrestling and presents it to an audience that can understand it and doesn't have to doesn't have to subscribe to New Japan World or something else to get a catch up on some people. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that, but that's the way that Jon was. Jon was a tremendous artist that was well thought and thought of professional wrestling in this sense. And I'm someone that kind of thinks of the big picture, and wants to try to sell it as the biggest. Like, I have inside jokes with people that maybe 15 people will get. In fact, Jon at one point this past week, he said to me, and now looking back on it, because I think it might have been where he thought that a certain day last week that he might have thought was the end. Because at one point it was after a couple of days, I didn't talk to him and he was offline. And then he hit me up and we talked for a little bit. And then at one point he says, I'm not even supposed to be here today. And then I threw a GIF from Clerks, and it was just Randall doing his Randall walk. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be joking about that. He's like, no, that's the exact reaction. And, but again, I didn't know, because he had told me, he's just like, I pretty much slept the last 48 hours, which I feel like everybody probably in their life should probably have that, where you just slept for 48 hours. But then again, what happened a week later, it explains it. A lot of conversation. The conversation we had on Friday was, you're going over, it's your spot. That was what he said to me on Friday night. And that was pretty much him telling me that this is, I don't know if that was his goodbye or if that was him pretty much saying that, real shitty way to get a promotion, my opinion.
Yep.
That's the way I look at it.
Yep. 10 for 10, do not recommend.
It's a really shitty way to get a promotion.
Like I said, 10 for 10, do not recommend.
Yeah. And that's the way I've looked at it. Because I wouldn't mind being Robin to his Batman if he was still around. I would take it. I would, if they said you get 10 more years, 20 more years with Jon, but you're going to be the co-host and he's going to be, I would happily take it. Unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. And that's also not a knock on you. Don't think that, by the way. I'm not. I'm just.
I am the Spock to your Kirk, sir. Don't worry about it.
No. I'm. You know what I meant. It's just the. Because I would do both happily. If I would absolutely do both shows. That wouldn't be if it was like, you get this many more years, John will still be here, and you're going to have to do 2 shows. Fine, fuck it. Because at one point or another, we'll probably be under the same network anyways. Who knows? Fuck. The way shit is, you never know.
Ooh, man.
By the way, you're welcome for the plug too, Booran. I was nice this week. I was really nice to my friends. I was like, I think I was. If there was a Best Friend of the Week award, I think I would get it from 2 different people. So that's shut the fuck up.
You know why? You know why? Because he is not.
Because I'm not booked.
No, he's not.
He's not booked.
Yeah, I still gave him love.
No, you did
on Wrestling Glory Days yesterday.
I saw the post. Yep.
Yeah, and then which still he got shit for it on his own personal page for that picture the other night, and he ended up he people were giving him crap about it. So I'm just sitting there and I'm like, you know what? This is a pretty good picture, anyways. So I go up on throw it up on Wrestling Glory Days, and I got shit for it there too. So it's like, well, you know, what can you do?
I just listen. He made the post. He made his bed, and I think the clap back post, so to speak, that he made was fine.
It was.
I didn't have any issue with it. I didn't have any issue with your post. I've had this conversation before about that person, that being the one he posted about, the one you posted about, and I recognize that, in my opinion, both are probably shitheads, both the character and the person. But I've had my grievance with the reason why people posted in backlash to the post, I guess. I don't know. And like, I get it, but I'm not going to go on people's personal Facebooks and bash them about it. I don't care enough. I just don't.
My thing about it is this. There are a lot of celebrities out there that do questionable things, horrible things, and I don't stop watching their films. I'm not going to stop watching Lethal Weapon 1 through 4. I'm not going to stop watching Braveheart. I'm not going to stop watching The Usual Suspects. Maybe American Beauty. Yeah, because that hasn't aged well. But I'm not going to stop watching Seven. I'm not going to stop watching. There's a lot of things I'm not going to stop watching because the people that were involved did some horrible or questionable things. Because if I started doing that, there would be a shit ton of stuff that I would miss out on. And if I live my life that way, and I'm not condoning not condoning what people do. Like if they have to stop liking a person because they like somebody or they endorse somebody that they loathe and hate and can't stand. And I'll be quite honest. My brother, who's an openly Trump hater, he texted me some memes about Hogan, and I laughed about it. And then I said, look, I understand why people are shitting on him because he thought I was going to take offense to it. I'm like, no. I said, it's funny. I said, do you know how many lies that Hogan tells anyways half the time? Like the guy thought he was going to be a Metallica for Christ's sake as the bassist. But it was it was funny with Cornette this week because he talked about it and he said that Hogan lies were kind of like almost like tall tales. They were funny. So he really didn't have an issue with him, a lot of the stuff, because to him, he just found it comical. But he did not appreciate what happened at the RNC, which, again, I understand. But at the same time, it is a long process. And there's certain barriers for me. Like it's certain ones that I'm just like, like with Benoit, it was a very quick, I don't want to have anything to do with him. And that was because of what happened. But with this, it's like, I mean, all he did was cut a promo that he's been cutting for the last 45 years.
I mean, at least the only person that Hulk Hogan killed was his career.
Yes, but how many times his career get killed and then get brought back anyways? I mean, I mean, he survived quite a bit. It's like
Clerks 2. I'm taking it back.
But it's like, it's so true.
I know.
It's like, but he's back. He came back after that thing. That thing, I don't want to like bring it up because, and people know about the thing. We all know about the thing. I feel like I don't have to elaborate on it. Which there was still a good portion of people that were pissed off about that, which I completely understand. And now they're pissed off about this, and it's like, you had Dana White go up there too, who's the president of the same company that's parented with WWE. So Kid Rock was up there. Like UFC's business is not affected by any of this anyways. Like UFC's business is like they're going to order the pay-per-views no matter what. They're going to watch the show no matter what. I find it funny though that the Real American figure with him with the guitar comes out it comes out the same weekend as the RNC. And you know what's also annoying? So he had a t-shirt sale on his website a few weeks back. And one of the shirts that I had purchased was the Real American shirt and it was him. It was from WrestleMania 7 with him with the flag and all that stuff. But I bought it because I was like, I've always loved that logo. I've always loved that design. Lo and fucking behold, last Thursday, what's the shirt that he tore before he
I know.
Trump? I was like, I was so fucking pissed. And I'll tell you, Steph had mentioned it to me when she saw me with the shirt. She was just like, why are you wearing that? I'm like, I like the design of it.
Right.
She's like, yeah, but that's not something to wear like right now. And this was before the convention. Yep. And then she saw it afterwards. She's just like, I told you, and you bought it. Like, I told you this would happen. Damn it. Yeah, but John always teased me about Hogan. Oh my God, it was hilarious. And it was he'd always turn it into something of, he'd be like, you'd go gay for Hogan if you could. I'm like, why do you always bring that up?
I mean,
why is it?
Where is the lie, though?
No, it's not. It's never going to happen. Good Lord. It would never happen. Like, I'm sure that, because people come into the house and they're just like, how many Hogan figures now are you over? Or what is it, close to 30? Oh, my God. Like, look, it's, the man is a hero at one point. And he's still, but the character from, if I could sit there and be like, Hogan between 84 and like 2006.
You
Like,
go that far? You go into
it-
2006? Really?
80, so between like 82 and 2003. How about that?
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
82 through 2003.
Yeah.
But loses to Shawn Michaels losing to him, and then the Randy Orton loss. Because I was one of the few people inside the Garden that night that was rooting for Randy Orton.
It's funny, going back to that for just a quick second, the Shawn Michaels thing, because I remember this guy
Who ran?
absolutely melting down about that.
Oh my God! Which almost made it worth it.
Oh God, yeah. Absolutely. Are you kidding me? I remember just throwing shit in anger and then walking out, and I think he just left.
He did.
And it was one of those moments that literally was akin to one of the stories that I need you to talk about on one of the other shows once we start doing it, of that went well.
Oh yeah.
It was a moment just like that. It really was. And just the fact that he was so upset about it, to the fact of rage quitting the party basically, was just that much funnier and that much more worth it too. But Rand, I love you, but that was funny.
I remember my significant other at the time was just as pissed off. They were like, what the fuck? What? He's 80 years old. He can barely move.
Speaking of 80, I know he's not exactly there yet, but this popped in my head a few minutes ago, and I'm waiting for the opportune time to say it, but I guess it's now. The one thing about Hogan that I never really subscribed to or watched, and I'm sure you're probably in the same boat, potentially anyways, is Hogan Knows Best. And the only thing I want to say before you go on is I really wonder how that aged at this point. Yeah, probably not.
Well, especially if that marriage just fell apart in front of your eyes. Christ.
Well, I mean, consider the fact that he also went back a few times and had got a TNA as well. And like you said, the marriage falling apart, and now he's ripping his shirt off at 70 plus at the RNC. It just kind of makes you wonder a little bit how that actually aged.
It did not age well. It did not age well at all. Especially with the Nick thing, because he ended up killing that guy in that. Well, technically not killing him.
I
but
forgot about that. Yeah.
Pretty much killing him.
Didn't he kill somebody and the other one was paralyzed? Or was it just the paralyzed? I forget.
Well, he was, he's pretty much a vegetable.
Right.
To the extent where they took a piece of it. Like, I seen the video.
Yeah.
It's brutal. Yeah. It is effing brutal. And that's when I think the decline really started to kind of accelerate after that.
Didn't he get in trouble after that, by the way?
Yeah, he got a DUI last year.
Yeah, that's right. And then Hogan had to come out with the cops, basically.
Yeah.
Good look.
And that's the hard.
I'll take him home, brother.
I'll take him home.
You don't have to grab him and buck him, brother. I'll take him home, brother.
It's just it. And that's the hard part, because it's like, you want to be, but then you look at Flair, and it's like, which one? Like,
I mean,
which one has damaged their legacy more?
Yeah, that's tough. I think, yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know. I think you can make an argument for either one.
Hogan, you can make the argument, and the big one is still the word.
Well, yeah, obviously.
That's the big one. That's the really kind of broken cardinal sin. But then the Flair thing, it's like, well, there was that stewardess on that plane. Yeah, so you're kind of,
Well, I mean, you could say that. You could say whatever mushroom
All these-
energy drink he does.
Oh my God! All the just, and then the recent thing with he was on Bert Kreischer's podcast, who's not funny at all, by the way, fucking terrible. But he was on that. He's popular for some fucking reason.
Oh man!
And Flair was on there, and he's crying again because of Reed. It's like, all right, I get it. Your son died under really tragic circumstances, but do you have to go on a comedy podcast always and talk about it?
You know, it's funny because sticking with Bert Kreischer for a second. Excuse me. He always says shit like, "Oh, I'm not really a wrestling fan," and then like Cody Rhodes goes on the show and he just sits there spitting out wrestling facts, and Cody even's like, for somebody that doesn't like wrestling, according to yourself, you know a lot about fucking wrestling. It's like, what the fuck?
It's because he's a pathological liar. That's why
That's a bad word.
Sorry.
he is a pathological liar. And
Well, clearly because his best joke / story is about him being in the fucking Russian mob.
yes,
That's a
like
bad word.
God.
and then he's out there. Then he was out there claiming that like Jay Moore stole all his jokes. It's just like, what? Like Jay Moore is a storyteller, but Jay Moore also had a career before you did. Jay Moore was in stuff that like people actually know about, instead of you just going out on stage with your fucking shirt off, thinking you're the goddamn like the messiah of comedy when you're not really even that funny. You're a drunken buffoon.
I swear to God, Netflix had a contract for the roast of Tom Brady that he had to keep his shirt on. That's the only excuse.
God.
That's the only fucking excuse. I remember even like half the comedians calling shit out about it. Like, oh, Bert's here. He's keeping his shirt on tonight.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
what the
just-
fuck?
Oh, he's terrible. He's just the worst. And Flair was on there, and of course, Flair is just like, he's checked out at one point. He's looking at his phone. It's just, and then there's the pizza incident at the pizza restaurant a few months back when he got drunk and he was on
God.
camera.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
all this shit. And I'm just like, But I'm looking at Hogan, and I'm looking at him, and it's just like, because do I really count what Hogan did last week as something that is going to negatively affect his career? Because I don't think it will.
but I don't think it's a matter
just-
of career as much as legacy.
I don't even think it'll affect his legacy that much.
Oh, I don't think it is either.
I don't think it should, because it's just because he's not the only one that does it. Like, but I'm sure
he's
that
not.
and I'm sure there's a bunch of celebrities that'll be at the DNC in a few weeks. I know that there are also more people that have proper, I guess you could say, more proper etiquette and things of that nature.
I'm just gonna not even say anything. There's just so much there that I just came into my head flooding in there that I'm just gonna shut my mouth. I'm just, yeah.
Because I'm not booked.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. My words are not booked. Yep. 100%.
That was, God. And this really is a good tribute to John, because we're jumping all over the place, which is exactly mostly every episode. There were some episodes with me and him where we would literally just talk about fucking baseball for an hour and a half and talk maybe 20 minutes of wrestling.
I mean, at least we're staying on topic for wrestling, at
Yes,
least.
we are.
But yeah, it's
It's just
we've devolved a little bit here.
He always thought too that I was upset that the White Sox beat the Red Sox in 05 on their way to the World Series. I remember telling him, I said, John, I was still fucking hungover from 2004 during that postseason. So as far as I'm concerned, you guys could have won the next you guys could have won in 05, swept us, and I wouldn't have given a shit because I was still drunk from the year before. I could have cared less.
Wait, what year was that?
It was just 2005.
Oh, okay.
That was the year the White Sox won
Yep.
the World Series.
Yep, I remember.
And they faced the Red Sox in the division series where they won. And he was just like, "Oh, you're not mad about that?" I said, "No." I said, "I was still drunk from the year before.
Yep.
Why, I said, "You guys could have." I didn't care. I really didn't. I was like,
It's,
we're
it's
gonna
the
go.
fucking White Sox. I mean, listen, if maybe that's part of him living out there versus us living out here, but yeah, like we don't care if other teams beat us. We just
No.
care if the division rivals beat us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only thing we give a shit about. So
I-
I remember in I think it was 01, 02. I think it was 01 because you were still at college with us together before you had gone to the other college, and
Yep.
I just remember another rage quit moment, another rage quit when the Yankees ended up winning, and just like, dude, like go away. Go somewhere else. I don't want to deal with you right now. I'm already mad enough the Yankees won. I don't need you like rage quitting about it.
That was I didn't care about 05. I told them that. I said, look, especially too, I said, as long as it wasn't the Cubs, if we lost to the Cubs, I would have been miserable.
Oh God,
Like
yeah.
the only time that I've ever really been upset by a Red Sox playoff loss was in 08 when they lost to the Rays. And that was because we lost to the fucking Rays.
Yeah.
Like that was the only that's the only time that bothers me when we lose to a division rival. Because if Toronto beat us, I'd be like, they haven't won shit in 30 years. Go ahead, let them. Baltimore, I'm like, they haven't won since 83. And then the Yankees, it's like,
They win every year we don't. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, who gives a shit? Like, the rivalry is dead to me. It's been dead to me for years.
It's still real to me, damn it.
It's just dumb. Like, it's stupid.
I don't really care as much anymore.
We won. The fuck do we care? And we've won 4 World Series in the last 20 years where they've only won 1. Like, the Yankees get 1, they still going to win 3 more for us to catch up, and then it's just like, all right, now we got to care again.
Yeah.
But I didn't care to begin with. Like, it's just, the rivalry's dead. It's been like that for me for years. He would always talk about Brady. He'd be like, you've had Tom Brady. And I'd be like, you have Jordan. Of course, he'd remind me that Michael Jordan was around in his prime when he was still like a toddler. So it was that. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, like, what was he, like 9 or 10 when Brady would have won his first at that point?
probably around
I
that
think
time.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably
So
about
he-
9. Looking at this,
Yeah.
birthday and shit.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, still, because the Celtics won the last time they won a championship was 86 before 08, but
Right.
we didn't have a championship in this city throughout like the 90s at all. So when we were in grade school and junior high school, we didn't win shit. It was when we went to college that they started winning. Well, the Patriots technically won your senior year of high school.
Yep.
We were going to keep this short tonight, out of respect for John, and really not try to go into wrestling too much, at least the current product, because after kind of everything happened, it was kind of hard to focus on what's been going on. SummerSlam's next week, so we were going to do a preview anyways of the show for next week. And that's going to be the plan there. To anybody that is friends with John, we're with you. Unbelievable to the family and friends. The utmost condolences and sympathy towards your time, what you guys are going through right now. Having gone through it recently, losing my brother, it's been it's a very challenging time, and I hope that at least we could have done this in his honor, at least in the short form. I am planning on doing something bigger in the future to kind of give him more of a better send off, trying to get some people together that guests or friends of him to kind of put together kind of something on a more grander scale. But this week was going to kind of be to touch on what has been a really kind of hard week for the entire pro wrestling world family, but also for John's friends and family as well. I thank Mac for understanding that and putting everything together with the graphics and the work that he's been able to do. Truly appreciate it, my friend, as always. Yeah, this was a tough assignment. This was a tough one to do again this week because, he is just a really good dude, really good human being, and really wanted to see this program grow and succeed. And I'm going to make it my focus and try to put my energy to make it that we do well and do well by him and his honor and his image of this program. I love you, John. The family loves you here at Pro Wrestling World. Thank you for everything that you've done for us. Godspeed, my friend. I'll see you on the other side. On behalf of Pro Wrestling World Talks, on behalf of the shoot, Mac, anything you want to say to close out?
No. Rest in power, King.
Rest in power, King. Thank you, everybody, and we'll be back here next week.